Now let's talk about autocomplete. Autocomplete is one of my favorite things to have used on a website. So when somebody has implemented it, I find it really helpful. But it's not too common for people to do this, and some people just starting off don't know about it. So I want to talk about this. Basically, what happens is if you've ever gone to a form and you've started to fill it out, it may suggest for you, hey, we have some values here that we think that you've used in the past and you may want to use again. So it's not operating right now. Let me see. Fill this out. So it's remembering that, submit. So I don't have this set up at the moment, but you've seen the example. Let's say you go to fill out credit card information. It says, hey, is this you? We've saved your information, and you hit enter and it'll pre-populate a bunch of the fields with your information. This is done using the autocomplete. And there are a few different values for autocomplete that you could use. So let's take a look at these. So here is a basic set of autocomplete attribute values that we have. We have the first ones of just off and on. So you could hard code, hey, this is not an autocomplete field. So if somebody has information saved, don't automatically fill this form out with it. And you might find instances where you want that. There's also the generic on. So you could just say, hey, this field has autocomplete enabled, but you don't specify what the different field is. All of the rest of these are going to be for when you want to specify what this field is, so that when they select, oh yeah, fill this form out for me automatically, they're going to know, the browser will know where to stick this person's information. So you have their given name, their family name, their email, the username, password, stuff like this, your address, the different components of your address, things like your telephone, birthday, your URL for your website, maybe even a picture. So these can be super helpful. And if you're building out a form, sometimes these will be automatically set if you're using WordPress and you use a plugin or you use a big theme like that that has some of these features. But if you're building this from scratch, I consider you take the time to just add that little bit in so that if somebody's using it, they will benefit from having these features. There's also this set that deals specifically with credit card information. So we could say, hey, if they have a credit card stored, and this is probably where you've seen this a bit on the internet, and if you let the browser save your credit card information, it may autocomplete your credit card for you, so you don't have to remember it and pull it out and type it in every time. But you could also give the person some security, like maybe you don't let them autocomplete a certain part of it so that you want to verify that this person is who they say they are, or you want to go to that extra step for whatever reason. And then we have the transaction currency and amount set as well. So again, this is not JavaScript really on its own. It is DOM-related stuff because these are attributes of element values, but really it's more just for your awareness as you start becoming more and more efficient with JavaScript, that you really know about forms in depth so that you know what you could help the user with from a usability perspective. So now let's look at the last aspect for this input field, which is the draggable attribute. And this one is, like access key, a global attribute, meaning it's not just for forms. But if we come to our form and we grab it, we could actually drag it around the page. Now, we don't have the JavaScript that we need to really make this work. So all we're doing is saying, hey, this element here, and again, you could attach it to a div, to a link, to anything, is draggable, but you'll need some actual JavaScript to make the draggable nature actually work. So it's kind of cool and it's great that it's there, but we don't know enough yet to really know how to implement this feature. So we'll come back to dragging and dropping with JavaScript a little bit later. Now, before we look at these other fields, I want to show you back here we had this input field with a type equal to hidden. So notice that this does not display on the page. Nowhere do we see it. However, when we submit it, up here we could see secret equals and then the actual value. So there are sometimes behind the scenes, either with JavaScript or from the server side, that we want to put some information in to pass along with a form, but it's not information that we need somebody editing or seeing, but we will need it on the other side. So this is where hidden fields come in handy. And if you don't know about this format here, what you have is with the get, you have a question mark, the name equals value, and then an ampersand, the next name equals value using the plus sign for spaces. Then we see the ampersand, the name of what we want, the value, and any time that we have spaces, we can also have, it won't process special characters, so it's going to convert them like this. But we can see the ampersand is going to separate them out each time. Okay, so coming back into our form here, we have our label again, the tab index, access keys. If you haven't worked with select fields before, the way they work is they have a few different options, and each option has its unique value. However, the name of this is applied to the select field. So we have here the subject, which is going to be this whole thing, and then the specific value depends on what you choose here. One thing I'll point out here, though, is that we can both hard code and using JavaScript later add a selected attribute, and this will automatically select a certain one. So notice that it works on its own, but we could also say selected equal to selected. And notice that that will work too. This may seem a little bit repetitive, but when it comes to getting and setting values later on, we'll find that not only do we need to figure out what attribute we want to select, but we also have to pass it a value. So that's one of the reasons that we could do this both ways. If we're just hard coding it, this is going to work, but if we're actually trying to set it via the DOM in JavaScript, then this is going to be usually what's implemented here.